Yo, what's up YouTube? This is Gresnick and welcome back to another reaction video. Today we will be reacting to Game Theory. What is Sans? Now, all I can guess about why they're making this video is because of the little bit of stuff we get with Sans during Chapter 5 of Deltarune, which, if you want to watch my playthrough of Chapter 5 of Deltarune, you can find on my other channel, Gresnick Plays. But, as always, like and subscribe to the Game Theorists and myself. Comment down below anything you want me to react to, what you think about this video, or anything else you want to say. Or you can join my Discord, Gresnick Studio, which you can find a link to in my channel description. And let's get into the video.
Was MatPat right about Sans?
No.
For years, he was mocked by the community for his infamous Sans' Nest
No.
theory. However, with the release of
Sans is not
Deltarune Chapter
Nest.
5, Sans is once again back in the spotlight, and it seems to imply that Matt may have been onto something all those years ago. Hello Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that has a lot more to say about Deltarune Chapter 5. If you missed our last video, we mostly covered the main route again, talking about Chris's father Asgore, his involvement in the old Dark World, how the Dark World is what turned Des into the night, and how that's forecasting the potential fate of Susie, as she too is beginning to spend a little too much time in the Dark World. However, during that last video, I said this. Now, I don't have time to do a deep dive into the weird route or the connections it has with Sans and Gesta right now. Well, now I do have time for it, and it turns out we may have been more right about Sans than anyone ever suspected. Deltarune just didn't exist to give us the full answer. And it's all because of the alternate route that you can take in Deltarune, which has been dubbed the Snowgrave or Weird route. This route started all the way back in Chapter 2, where Chris can take their childhood friend Noelle through the city and start pushing them to become more violent towards the monsters. In each subsequent chapter, we've been given the choice to continue this path, continuing to manipulate Noelle and force her to become stronger, leading to a little red dot appearing on the screen that says thank you. We previously theorized that this is Noelle's soul growing, similar to the soul Chris holds within their chest. It's her heart and her will to make decisions that has grown. We believe the goal of this was to make Noelle the second hero of the prophecy instead of Susie, as we see the image of a girl in a robe with a heart that says love finds its way to the girl. Love being levels of violence, a measure used in Undertale. But as I've alluded to, the connections to Undertale don't stop there, because even though Chapter 5's Weird Route is super short, Chris and Noelle's actions, as well as Sans' appearance, confirm so much about the foundation of Deltarune, its future chapters, and how Sans ties everything together. All will be revealed as we follow the trail of breadcrumbs that's being left for us loyal theorists. I just hope you don't mind getting a little wet. If you've taken the weird route thus far, at the start of the chapter, instead of Chris waking up early to go to the festival, Chris sleeps in. Having missed the whole festival, Susie takes Chris to meet Noelle, because Noelle wanted to speak with them. Noelle is acting very different here. She talks about how she has changed. Since Des disappeared, she just kind of carried on. Chris has shown her a new way, the free will that we, the player, have been forcing upon her. Noelle grabs Chris by the hand and says to go somewhere no one has ever been before. As you near the edge of the lake, you continue to say, proceed. Noelle and Chris walk deeper and deeper. You continue to select proceed, and as it looks like the screen is whiting out, Chris and Noelle slowly drown. Suddenly, the screen goes black and text appears that says, insert Chapter 7, Side B. And that's it. That's the end of Chapter 5. We skipped over the entirety of the chapter, and even Chapter 6. You don't even get to go to the Dark World and hang out with my boy Flowery. But despite the weird route being so short, the limited interactions you do have reveal a lot. In this route, the festival has already ended, but there is one character still standing around waiting for you, Sans. In both routes, when you find him, Sans asks Susie to draw her friend on a punch card. In the normal route, she doesn't specify who she draws, but based on the fact that Noelle is standing right there, it would make sense for Susie to be drawing Noelle in this image alongside herself, Chris, and Ralsei. However, in the weird route, she specifically calls out that it's just her, Chris, and Ralsei. This is where we get to the part I spoke about in the last episode, because long-time Undertale fans know if you go to the secret lab in Undertale, you will find a poorly drawn picture of 3 smiling people, and underneath is written the words, "Don't forget. Sans drawing in Undertale specifically calls out 3 smiling people. So this is implying that the drawn picture from Susie is the same one from Undertale, and that it's specifically the one from the Weird Route. It's also worth mentioning that this interaction with Sans in the Weird Route is mandatory, but the one in the normal route is actually just optional. Sans is well known as a bit of a multiversal being given his interactions in Undertale, but Sans holding onto this note from the Weird Route means that this is the canon route of Deltarune, not just a fun alternative, but the way it...
Well, this game isn't technically meant to have a canon route, since technically the Weird Route shouldn't exist by design because of what it's meant to signify. Technically, this would just mean the Sans we see in Undertale's universe is the same Sans from specifically the Weird Route of Deltarune, which is really weird because it still doesn't explain how Sans has gotten to Undertale from Deltarune. Maybe we'll see something in Chapter 7, but we have at least like 2 years to wait. Who knows?
It's supposed to go.
It's not
Noelle
the canon
choosing
route,
violence is how Deltarune ends. But then Sans does something else that's even more interesting. Just before we head to the lake to meet Noelle, he says he's run out of ice cream and instead gives us bread. Just bread. This does not feel like equivalent exchange, my friend. Although we are getting it for free, so maybe I shouldn't question it. Regardless, it feels like a super strange gift until you read the description. A loaf of bread tends to leave crumbs wherever it goes. Sans giving us this bread is purposefully designed
it's
to
an
have us
Earthbound
leave
reference.
a breadcrumb trail. Now, immediately my theorist alarm bells were going off because this is actually an item in Earthbound. You use bread to make breadcrumbs that can teleport the player to the location where the breadcrumbs began, or if that area no longer exists, it sends you out of bounds. Sans' nest confirmed in the big 2026
it's just
anniversary.
a reference.
Of course, I'm kidding. Well, kind of. Sans isn't really connected to Ness or Earthbound, but it does finally give us an explanation for Sans and where he actually came from. During your dinner date with Sans in Undertale, he says that Frisk must really want to go home and that he knows the feeling, buddo. And during the genocide route, he tells us, look, I gave up trying to go back a long time ago, and getting to the surface doesn't really appeal anymore either. The use of either here is communicating that going back is one option and returning to the surface is another. Meanwhile, the snowed-in shopkeeper talks about how Sans and Papyrus showed up one day and asserted themselves. Combine this with the fact that Sans can bleed, something which characters in Undertale cannot do, and it becomes very clear that Sans isn't originally from Undertale, but somewhere else. Maybe somewhere where he can get a sleek new fit. Wait, what? Who are you? We all know Sans loves himself a hoodie. The blue zip-up is iconic, but variety is the spice of life, so he could always try a pullover, like the new one we're selling over at thewear.store right now, featuring another one of our favorite blue guys. Huggy Wuggy. That's right, we're doing another Poppy collection, and let me tell ya, this one is super
Here's the end of it. Please stop.
Thank you, Spamton. Sadly, it doesn't look like Sans is super interested in this hoodie, so I guess you'll have to go away and we should just focus on the fact that Sans isn't actually from Undertale. Instead, it appears he's from Deltarune, and he used the breadcrumbs to escape. Monsters in the underground of Undertale don't bleed. Sans is the only one, but you know where monsters do bleed? Deltarune. When you're on the dinner date with Sans in Undertale, the song that plays is called It's Raining Somewhere Else. However, at the end of Deltarune Chapter 4, the song that plays is called The Place Where It Rained. Sans' special song ties directly to the Deltarune location, and we all know how much care and attention Toby Fox puts into the music of these games. And for more evidence, look no further than the exclusive interaction you can have with Sans in Undertale's Dog Casino. By making it look like it snows, Sans says, putting down presents for everyone. Papyrus, the yellow kid, the antlered girl, and her big sis. The yellow kid is Chris with their yellow skin, the antlered girl is Noelle, and her big sis is Des. Sans?
Well, maybe. That's a bit of a stretch when Monster Kid is right there as the yellow kid, and Noelle and Des do canonically exist in Undertale. We just don't actually get to meet them. We know they exist from some very secret Undertale text that you can get, where Rudy is mentioned being Asgore's college friend.
and has memories of his time and the people in Deltarune. And tragically, he can't go back. And the only way to try is by creating determination. Right after the moment we're given the bread by Sans, we head to meet Noelle, which leads to the whole glitching through the Matrix thing and skipping to chapter 7. But what is actually happening?
We're gonna go to
here?
Undertale.
It's hard to say for sure. Noelle just says, let's go somewhere no one has gone before. But I do think it's interesting that we have Chris, a human containing our soul, and Noelle, a monster who is also gaining a soul of some kind. Now think back to Undertale. There, monsters were sealed in the underground, only able to break the barrier and transcend to the surface if they used the souls of a human and a monster. That is what we're seeing happen now in Deltarune. Both Chris and now Noelle have souls, and so their determination is helping them to transcend to an upper plane. Maybe the one we've talked about before, the Angel's Heaven. We're still not 100% sure what that is.
Yeah,
All we theorized
question.
is that we are in some way the angels, the ones controlling these souls. And so wherever we are is where the control is coming from. It's widely theorized that Deltarune is part of the experiments that we saw W.D. Gaster performing before the events of Undertale. Gaster, for those of you who don't know, was the royal scientist within the Undertale universe before the events of the game. He does have a chance to appear in the game, depending on certain in-game values that you're assigned, but by the time the game happens, he has mostly disappeared, appearing to have shattered across time and space. But before that, he was running experiments on determination, the key driving force behind our character in Undertale and the monster's only way to break the barrier, leading to the creation of the Goner characters, monsters that have been corrupted by determination. In the secret lab, you can find notes about his experiments, but there's one that's missing. Entry 17. If you hack the game...
No, that's... What the hell are you talking about? All of the logs down there that you can read are from Alphys doing experiments on the fallen down monsters, and then they turn into the amalgamates. We don't know how the Goners are created. They just happen to exist for some reason. And also, none of the text down here is written the same as how Gaster talks. 1, it would all be in wingdings, and 2, it would all be capitalized. So, no, this is simply not true.
Game, you can access this journal entry, which is written in wingdings, hence W.D.
The font that
Gaster.
Gaster
But when
taps
translated, it says this: darker, darker,
and it's all in
darker.
caps.
The darkness keeps growing, the shadows cutting deeper. Photon readings negative. This next experiment seems very, very interesting. What do you two think? The noise you hear during the sequence can actually be heard if you use your phone in the dark world in Deltarune. And in the intro sequence for Deltarune, a character speaks to us, and their speech pattern seems very similar to Gaster's. But alongside that, the file is called Goner Maker. Gaster made the Goners, and Gaster's theme plays during this sequence, implying that this is in fact Gaster who is speaking to us at the start of an experiment.
Gaster's
These
theme
references
does not
to
play
dark,
here.
darker yet
I don't even
darker,
remember what
the
the theme
shadows
here is
cutting
called.
like how Chris opens the dark fountains with a knife, and the references to this particular determination experiment
We just
being
ignore that
interesting
part
has
earlier
led the
about the
community to
entries
believe
and
that
how
this
he made the
experiment from
Goners,
Entry
and honestly,
17
this theory's
is the
been good so
Deltarune
far.
that we have been playing. Gaster and Undertale are the higher plane of existence above where these experiments take place, the world of Deltarune. And so, if Noelle and Chris are transcending thanks to them having the souls of a human and a monster, there's a good chance they end up in Undertale in Chapter 7, leaving behind a breadcrumb trail for Sans to follow, taking him to the world of Undertale before the events of that game. Or at least, that's where I was going to leave this episode. I figured it was a pretty solid endpoint before the next chapter. Chris and Noelle are heading to Undertale, and Sans was originally from Deltarune. The weird route is showing us that Matt was actually on the right track with his original Sans' Nest theory. Deltarune just didn't exist at the time, so
to be another reference towards
and connected it to the other franchise that Toby Fox took a lot of inspiration from. But the more I looked into Sans, the more I realized that yes, he's from somewhere that isn't Undertale, we all agree on that, but it's not Deltarune either. You see, when you first meet Sans in Deltarune, he says that he's new in town. Now, we know that Sans is a very good liar. In Undertale, he consistently uses jokes and casualness as a front for him knowing more than he lets on. So, him claiming to be new in town could very well just be him lying. But Susie actually confirms this part of his story, saying that the house itself is also new and not being able to remember what came before. And when you look at the house, something else stands out about it. It's identical to his house in Undertale. While we've seen plenty of characters repeat from Undertale to Deltarune, they've always had distinct differences, like their personality, visual differences, and things like their houses.
You know, if you really think about it, Undertale itself kind of feels like a dark world.
Same house. Almost like, much like we're told in Undertale, he just showed up one day and asserted himself into the world, transporting the house along with him. Because even the house is considered
he does the same thing in both games,
just
technically.
like Sans.
Where
in
is
that
he
first
from,
conversation
then?
with Sans about him being new, he also does another one of his classic Sansisms, where he says, "Considering we've never met before," and then winks. This is a classic sign that Sans is lying, knowing more than what he's saying.
Sans
in
is
Chapter
somehow
4, he also
following
actively
our soul
stops Toriel from
specifically.
going to look for Chris and Susie, telling her that they're just fine. And in Chapter 5, when he refused to give you ice cream, if you look really carefully, there is an ice cream there. A suspiciously Gaster Blaster shaped ice cream. He does know us. Not because he's from here, but because he's been part of Gaster's team since before the existence of Deltarune. We've theorized before that Sans is actually a scientist working for Gaster. His signature weapon is a Gaster Blaster, so duh. But Sans also has an interest in science. He has a history with the current royal scientist Alphys. A bunch of entries in the secret lab are also written in entirely lowercase, which is how Sans speaks in the game. When Gaster says, "What do you two think?" in entry 17, he's referring to Alphys and Sans. So I'm proposing that the reason Sans knows so much about Deltarune in Undertale and why he's present in this game is not because he's a local, but because he used his space manipulation powers to transplant himself and his home inside the experiment. In Sans' home in Undertale, we see a broken machine, and Toby Fox seemed to imply that they could never fix it. I believe that this machine is likely what Sans used to transport himself and his home between the world of Undertale and Deltarune, only for it to break after the final events of Deltarune upon his final return. Deltarune is Gaster's experiment to see if determination can be formed, if they can choose their own destiny. If he's going to succeed, he needs to make sure that Chris, or more importantly, we, stay on track. Sans gives Chris the bread to form a trail of crumbs so that they can track what's about to happen within the experiment. Right after that, the human and the monster's souls transcend. A true showing of determination, and that is what Gaster has been after. This is the turning point for the experiment, and if it worked like in Earthbound, these breadcrumbs will allow Sans and Gaster to keep returning to this moment again and again to repeat the experiment as much as they need to. It's no secret that Sans hates humans. He says so a few times, going as far as to say to Frisk that if he hadn't promised Toriel to protect humans, you'd be dead where you stand. Of course, the hatred of humans is expected in the world of Undertale. The humans banish them to the underground. There's gonna be some emotions that go with that. But in Deltarune, Sans is nice to Chris, a human. He even tells us to take it easy. So something between then and now changes his outlook on humans. And it's the weird route.
Well, maybe. Who knows? He could have just been joking there, like he said. But then again, it also technically would be his job to kill the human if they came through. I really doubt he would do it, though. I'm kind of... That conversation, even, like, in-game, is so weird. Because, honestly, reading through it, it's like we're missing context with some of the stuff he says.
The weird route is full of violence, much like the genocide route where he revealed his hatred for us. Sans is seeing firsthand the destruction we are causing through Chris. All the monsters we destroy with no care, and
we
that
haven't
is
killed
going
any
to lead
monsters,
to Sans'
just
hatred of
darkners,
humans,
and I guess
specifically
Birdly, but
humans with soul
Birdly.
and determination. Because given the choice, they will always
Birdly isn't dead.
choose
He's technically
violence.
in
Fun
coma.
fact: in the Undertale soundtrack, there's a song called "The Song That Might Play When You Fight Sans."
Toby sucks
it
for
never
making this.
shows up. There is zero chance of it showing up when you play the game or when you fight Sans. But if It's Raining Somewhere Else was foreshadowing Deltarune, maybe this song is doing the same thing. Maybe in Chapter 7 Side B, we are going to end up fighting Sans, who, despite being there to keep things on track, doesn't want to see us all go down this road. He doesn't like seeing where determination leads, and if it's successful, Gaster would put the whole of Undertale on the same path. During the fight, his machine will likely be damaged, only offering him one more trip to Undertale before it's broken for good. That is why Sans writes "Don't forget" on the punch card, so he can always remember the route that Chris took and what they did, how they revealed the true nature of determination. Sadly, that means we're still none the wiser as to where Sans was originally from. My bad, I know that's what I sold this whole episode on, but I do think what we found today is really interesting. And wherever he is from, he doesn't see any way of going back, and whatever happened there, it led him to just appear in Undertale one day. Maybe wherever it was also destroyed by that same determination. And now he's begun studying, working with people like Gaster to make sure it doesn't destroy anything else ever again. That, or maybe Matt was right, and he is just Ness. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. World premiere on...
Okay. In my humble opinion, this theory is very iffy. Because, okay, yeah, I do wonder what the bread in the Weird Route is actually going to do, or if it is completely unimportant. But some of the stuff that he says in this doesn't have much nuance to us. And also, the whole thing about Gaster creating the Goners in the secret lab is just not true. No clue what he was yapping about there. But I mean, like, as I have to kind of say with every single Deltarune theory I ever watch is, I mean, it could be possible. Who knows? Do I think Toby will go down this path? Not really. I don't see that happening. Along with the whole Weird Route is the canon route of Deltarune, feels wrong because the point of Deltarune is your choice doesn't matter. And the Weird Route is meant to be a really bad display of what happens whenever you try to force your will onto what's happening in a game. But as always, like and subscribe to the Game Theorists and myself. Comment down below anything you want me to react to, what you think about the video, where's how you're feeling, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. That was weird. Why did I do it different that time?